The massive space station called Harmony floated in the neutral zone between 3 star systems. It was bigger than most moons and had been built by 12 different alien species working together. Today, it would host something that had never happened before in galactic history. Humans were coming for their first official diplomatic meeting. Jake Martinez stood in the human shuttle, looking out at the enormous station through the small window. He was tall and had dark hair with some gray at the sides. As Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, he felt the weight of representing all of humanity. Next to him sat Dr. Lisa Carter, a woman with short blonde hair who knew everything about food and nutrition. She would help explain human eating habits if anyone asked. The third member of their team was Ben Thompson, a friendly man with red hair who studied different cultures for a living. "Remember," Jake said to his team as their shuttle got closer to the docking bay, "we want to make a good first impression. These aliens have been watching us from far away for years. Now they finally want to meet us face to face." Lisa nodded and checked her notes one more time. "I brought information about human food and cooking methods, just in case they're curious about our culture." Ben smiled. "I'm excited to learn about their customs, too. This is a chance of a lifetime." Their shuttle landed smoothly in a docking bay that was filled with breathable air. The humans stepped out wearing their best diplomatic uniforms. Jake had chosen simple black suits for all of them, wanted to look professional but not threatening. The first alien they met was tall and seemed to be made of living crystal. Its body caught the light from the station's walls and threw rainbow colors everywhere. When it moved, it made a sound like wind chimes. "Welcome, humans," the crystal being said in perfect English, though its voice sounded like music. "I am Keshtar of the Zalani Collective. We have waited long to meet the species from the world you call Earth." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly as he had practiced. "Thank you for having us. I am Ambassador Jake Martinez. This is Dr. Lisa Carter, our nutrition specialist, and Ben Thompson, our cultural expert." 2 more aliens joined them. One was clearly from an ocean world, walking in a suit filled with water. Tentacles moved inside the transparent helmet, and large eyes studied the humans with interest. The other alien looked like a walking tree, with bark-like skin and leaves growing from his arms. "I am Velnara of the Aquarian Deep Council," said the water-dwelling alien through speakers in its suit. Its voice was soft and bubbling. "And I am Thelmos of the Verdani Grove," said the tree-like being. When it spoke, the leaves on its body rustled gently. The group began walking through the station's corridors. The walls were smooth and glowed with soft light. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. Some looked curious, others seemed nervous. Jake noticed that many of them stayed far away. "Your station is beautiful," Lisa said, looking around at the curved architecture. "How many species helped build it?" 12 in total," Keshtar replied. "Each contributed their best technology and design ideas. We believe cooperation makes us all stronger." They entered a large room with a circular table surrounded by comfortable chairs. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars outside. Representatives from several other alien species were already seated, waiting for the humans to arrive. "Please, sit anywhere you like," Thelmos said, his leaves rustling with what seemed like nervousness. The humans took seats across from the aliens. Jake noticed that none of the alien representatives sat too close to them. He wondered if humans had a reputation for being dangerous. "Before we begin official discussions," Velnara said, her tentacles moving slowly in her water suit, "we would like to learn more about human culture. We find your species very interesting." "We're happy to share," Ben said with a warm smile. "What would you like to know?" Keshtar's crystal body brightened. "We are curious about daily life on your world. How do your people live? What brings you joy? What do you do for sustenance?" Jake thought these were easy questions. He began talking about human cities, about how people work together and build communities. He mentioned art and music and sports. The aliens listened with great interest, asking questions about human technology and social structures. Then Keshtar asked a question that would change everything. "What do your people consume for sustenance?" the crystal being asked. "We Zalani absorb minerals from our crystal caves. The Aquarians filter nutrients from their ocean waters. The Verdani gain energy from sunlight. We are most curious about human feeding habits. Jake didn't see any problem with the question. It seemed like normal cultural exchange. Well, humans are what we call omnivores. That means we can eat many different things. We eat plants like fruits and vegetables, but we also eat meat. The word meat seemed to create a strange silence in the room. Several aliens looked confused. Meat? Velnara asked, her tentacles stopping their gentle movement. Yes, Lisa said helpfully. Meat comes from animals. We raise animals like cows and pigs and chickens. Then we prepare them for food. For example, this morning I had bacon and eggs for breakfast. The confusion on the aliens' faces was growing deeper. Thelmoss's leaves began to shake slightly. You consume other living beings? Keshtar asked slowly. His crystal body was starting to dim. Well, yes, Ben said, not understanding why this was a problem. Humans have always eaten animals. It's completely normal for us. We also eat fish from the ocean and birds from the sky. The room became very quiet. Jake started to realize that maybe this wasn't normal for other species. He looked around the table and saw that every alien representative looked shocked or horrified. Is this unusual? Jake asked carefully. Velnara's tentacles were now trembling inside her water suit. We had not realized. We thought humans were civilized. We are civilized, Lisa said, starting to feel defensive. We cook our food and prepare it carefully. We have thousands of different recipes and cooking methods. This seemed to make things worse. Thelmoss made a sound like wind through leaves, but it sounded distressed. You have developed methods for consuming other life forms? The plant-like alien asked. Of course, Ben said. Every culture on Earth has its own cooking traditions. Some people like their meat cooked well. Others prefer it rare. We have different spices and sauces to make it taste better. Jake watched as the crystal being named Keshtar grew dimmer and dimmer. The other aliens were starting to lean away from the human delegation. Perhaps, Jake said slowly, we should talk more about this later. I think there might be some misunderstanding here. But it was too late. The damage was done. The aliens now knew that humans consumed other living creatures, and they found this knowledge terrifying. The awkward silence in the meeting room stretched on for several long seconds. Jake Martinez could see the horror growing in the alien faces around him. He tried to think of a way to fix the situation, but every word seemed to make things worse. Let me explain better, Jake said carefully. Humans don't hunt other intelligent species. We only eat animals that aren't smart like us. Keshtar's crystal body flickered weakly. But you said you consume living creatures. How is this possible for a civilized species? Dr. Lisa Carter decided to help with a scientific explanation. It's really quite normal from a biological standpoint. On Earth, we have what's called a food chain. Plants get energy from the sun, animals eat the plants, and some animals eat other animals. Humans are naturally designed to eat both plants and animals. The tree-like alien Thelmoss made a rustling sound that seemed very upset. You speak of consuming beings as if it were natural. It is natural for us, Lisa continued. Our teeth are designed for it. We have sharp teeth called canines for tearing meat and flat teeth for grinding plants. Our stomachs produce acid that can break down animal proteins. Velnara's tentacles were moving faster inside her water suit. You have weapons, and your mouths are consuming other life. Ben Thompson tried to lighten the mood. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds scary, but it's really not. Let me tell you about a typical human meal. Last night, I had a nice steak with potatoes and vegetables. Steak, asked one of the other alien representatives, a gray-skinned being with large black eyes. Beef, Ben explained cheerfully. It comes from cows. We raise cows on farms, and when they're big enough, we prepare them for food. A steak is a piece of muscle meat that we cook over heat. The gray alien made a choking sound and covered its mouth with thin fingers. Jake was starting to realize how bad this was getting, but Lisa was still trying to be helpful. The way Ben describes it makes it sound simple, but human cooking is actually very complex. We have many different ways to prepare meat. We can roast it, grill it, fry it, boil it, or smoke it. Each method creates different flavors and textures. You experiment with the flesh of other beings? Keshtar asked weakly. We call it cooking, Lisa said. For breakfast this morning, I had bacon and eggs. Bacon comes from pigs. We cure the meat with salt and smoke it for flavor. The eggs come from chickens. We crack open the shells and cook the contents in a hot pan. Several aliens at the table made sounds of distress. One of them, a being that looked like it was made of flowing metal, actually got up and left the room. The eggs, Velnara said in a shaking voice. Are those not children of these chicken creatures? Ben laughed, not realizing how this sounded to the aliens. Oh no, these are unfertilized eggs. The chickens lay them whether or not they're going to become baby chicks. We just collect them and eat them. They're really tasty, especially when you cook them with butter. Butter? Asked Delmas. That comes from cows, too, Lisa explained. We take milk from female cows and churn it until it becomes thick and creamy. It adds a rich flavor to food. The plant-like alien swayed as if he might fall over. You steal nourishment meant for the young of these creatures? Jake finally realized he needed to take control of the situation. Look, I can see this is disturbing to you, but you have to understand that this is completely normal for humans. Every human culture has been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. Thousands of years, the gray alien asked in horror. You have been consuming other life forms for millennia? Well, yes, Jake said. Our ancestors were hunters and gatherers. They had to eat animals to survive in harsh environments. It's part of what made us strong enough to eventually build spaceships and come meet you. This seemed to be the worst thing he could have said. The aliens looked at each other with what could only be described as terror. Ben was still trying to help, and we've gotten really good at it over time. Different parts of Earth develop different styles of cooking. In some places, people like their meat cooked for a long time until it's very soft. In other places, they barely cook it at all. The dining hall of the Harmony Station was a marvel of alien engineering. The ceiling changed colors slowly, mimicking the cycle of different homeworlds. Tables could adjust their height and shape to accommodate different species. Tonight, it was set up for the official welcome dinner for the human delegation. Jake Martinez walked into the hall with Lisa Carter and Ben Thompson, hoping the evening would go better than their morning meeting. The aliens had spent the afternoon in what they called cultural consultation sessions. Jake wasn't sure what that meant, but he hoped it was a good thing. The alien hosts had tried their best to prepare a meal that humans could eat. On the table was grilled fish that looked like salmon, roasted bird that resembled chicken, and what appeared to be beef prepared in a pastry crust. There were also various vegetables and fruits from different worlds. This looks wonderful, Lisa said politely as they took their seats. Thank you for going to so much trouble. Keshtar's crystal body was still dimmer than it had been that morning, but he managed to speak. We wanted to show respect for your dietary requirements. Our food preparation staff studied human nutritional needs. The other aliens sat farther away from the humans than they had at the morning meeting. Velnara's tentacles moved nervously in her water suit. Thelmos kept his leaves pulled close to his body, as if protecting himself. Jake picked up his knife and fork and began cutting into the fish. The simple action caused several aliens to gasp and look away. He paused, realizing that even the act of cutting food with sharp metal tools was disturbing to them. Is something wrong? Jake asked. We had not considered that you would need to slice your food, Velnara said weakly. Ben tried to be helpful. Oh, this is normal. Most human food needs to be cut into smaller pieces. We're pretty good with knives. Every human learns to use them when they're children. The gray alien from a morning session made a strangled sound. You train your young to use cutting implements. Sure, Ben said, taking a bite of what looked like chicken. Kids start with small, safe knives when they're maybe 5 or 6 years old. By the time they're teenagers, they can handle big kitchen knives like experts. Dr. Carter was enjoying her meal, unaware of the growing horror around the table. This beef is excellent. The preparation reminds me of beef Wellington. That's a dish where we wrap the meat in pastry and cook it slowly. The meat stays tender and juicy while the pastry gets crispy. Tender and juicy? Keshtar repeated faintly. Yes. Lisa continued enthusiastically. Good cooking is all about texture and flavor. This beef has been cooked just right. It's pink in the middle, which means it's still soft and full of natural juices. Several aliens pushed back from the table. The mention of pink meat and natural juices was too much for them. Jake tried to change the subject. The vegetables are delicious too. What are these purple things? They are nutripods from the Verdani homeworld. Thelmoss said in a strained voice. They are harvested without harm to the parent plant. That's nice, Ben said, then added without thinking. Though humans wouldn't have a problem either way. We eat plenty of things that kill the plant. Carrots, potatoes, radishes. You have to pull them out of the ground, and that kills the whole plant. The plant-like alien made a sound like branches breaking in a storm. Lisa was still focused on the meat dishes. I have to ask about your preparation methods. This salmon is cooked perfectly. The outside is crispy, but the inside is still moist. And the seasoning is wonderful. What did you use? We consulted your databases. Keshtar said reluctantly. We learned about human spice usage and cooking techniques. You studied our cooking methods? Jake asked, suddenly worried about what they might have found. Yes, said a new alien voice. A being that looked like living metal flowed into the room. I am More Dunn of the Archive Collective. I was assigned to research human food preparation. More Dunn's metallic form rippled with what seemed like distress. Your databases contain extensive information about consuming other life forms. The variety is overwhelming. Ben brightened up. Oh, you found our recipe databases? Those are great. Every culture on Earth has contributed thousands of recipes over the centuries. Thousands, More Dunn repeated weakly. At least, Lisa added helpfully. And that's just the ones that are written down. Many families pass down their own special recipes. My grandmother had a secret way of preparing lamb that she only taught to her children. Lamb, asked Velnara. Baby sheep, Ben explained. Very tender meat. Some people think it's cruel to eat the young ones, but others say they taste better because the meat is more delicate. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could see that several aliens were trembling. Dr. Carter was still thinking about the food research. What else did you find in our databases? I hope you found some of our more interesting preparation methods. More Dunn's metallic surface rippled faster. We found many things. Creatures consumed while still alive. Methods for keeping flesh fresh after death. Competitions for consuming large quantities of other beings. Oh, you found the food festivals, Ben said excitedly. Those are fun. Every summer, my hometown has a barbecue competition. Teams compete to cook the best ribs, brisket, and pulled pork. The winners get big trophies. Competitions, Keshtar whispered. You compete over who can best consume other life forms. Jake was starting to realize they were making things much worse, but he couldn't seem to stop his teammates from talking. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. Food competition shows are very popular on Earth. Chefs compete to create the most creative and delicious dishes. Some shows focus on cooking speed, others on presentation or flavor. And barbecue is a whole art form, Ben added. People spend all day slowly cooking big pieces of meat over wood fires. The smoke gives the meat a special flavor, and when it's done right, the meat is so tender it falls off the bone. The phrase, falls off the bone, seemed to be the final straw for several aliens. Thelmoss made a sound like a tree falling, and actually swayed as if he might collapse. Two of the smaller alien species quietly left the dining hall. More Dunn's metallic form was now shifting colors rapidly. Your databases also contained images of humans consuming the flesh while expressing joy and satisfaction, smiling while biting into other beings. Well, of course we smile, Lisa said, puzzled by their reaction. Good food makes people happy. There's nothing better than a perfect meal with friends and family. Jake finally managed to speak up. I think we need to stop this conversation. It's clear that our eating habits are very different from yours, and maybe we should respect those differences. But the damage was done. The aliens now knew not only that humans consumed other living creatures, but that they had turned it into an art form, a competition, and a source of joy. They celebrated consumption of flesh and had developed thousands of ways to make it taste better. As the dinner ended early with most of the alien delegates fleeing the room, Jake realized that humanity's reputation in the galaxy had just changed forever. They were no longer seen as a potential ally or trading partner. They were now viewed as the most terrifying predators the galaxy had ever encountered. And the worst part was the humans still didn't fully understand why. Thelmos had not slept for 3 cycles. As a Verdani, he normally spent his rest periods in peaceful photosynthesis, absorbing starlight through the station's viewing ports. But now, every time he tried to rest, images from a human database filled his mind with horror. The plant-like being sat in his private quarters, surrounded by holographic displays, showing Earth's cultural information. What started as scientific curiosity about their new galactic neighbors had become a nightmare journey into the eating habits of the universe's most terrifying species. Archive, display human food category, breakfast items, he said to the room's computer system. The hologram showed egg prepared in dozens of different ways. Scrambled, fried, poached, boiled. But it was the descriptions that made Thelmos's leaves shiver. Eggs Benedict, where humans took the unborn offspring of birds, cooked them, and served them on a bed of more dead animal flesh. Breakfast sausage, the ground-up flesh of pigs stuffed into tubes made from the animal's own intestines. Archive, display human food category, seafood, he commanded, though part of him didn't want to see more. The images that appeared were beyond his worst fears. Humans consuming creatures while they were still alive. Oysters slurped from their shells while still breathing. Something called sushi, where they ate raw fish flesh, slicing it with precise knife work that humans had turned into an art form. Lobsters and crabs boiled alive because humans believed they tasted better when they died in agony. Thelmos made the sound of wind through dying leaves. Each new discovery was worse than the last. His door chimed, indicating a visitor. Enter, he called weakly. Keshtar flowed into the room, the Zolani's crystal body barely glowing. Friend Thelmos, I cannot find rest either. The knowledge we have gained weighs heavily on my mineral heart. I have been studying their database, Thelmos said, gesturing at the horrible images floating around the room. I cannot stop. Each revelation is more terrifying than the last. Keshtar's crystalline form dimmed further as he looked at the displays. Show me what you have learned. Archive, display human food category, delicacies, Thelmos said. The hologram changed to show foods that made both aliens recoil in horror. Escargot, snails consumed while still in their shells, drowned in melted fat from other animals. Foie gras, the diseased liver of force-fed geese, considered a luxury because of the suffering involved in its creation. Caviar, the eggs of fish, consumed by the thousands in a single serving. They eat the children of sea creatures by the mouthful, Keshtar whispered, his voice like distant crystal chimes. It gets worse, Thelmos said. Archive, display human food category, blood-based dishes. The new images showed black pudding, actual blood mixed with fat and grain, then cooked into solid form. Blood sausage from different Earth cultures. Something called dinuguin, where humans cooked cubes of meat in the blood of the animal they had killed. Both aliens stood in horrified silence for long moments. They consumed the life essence itself. Keshtar said finally. Thelmos activated another display. I found more disturbing information. Archive, show human food category, live consumption. The hologram showed humans eating creatures that were still moving. Dishes where small fish were prepared, so they would still be alive when consumed. Raw preparations where creatures were cut open and eaten immediately after death, before their cells had stopped functioning. Archive displays search results for hunting for sport. Thelmos continued his horrible investigation. The images now showed humans tracking and killing creatures not for sustenance, but for pleasure. They mounted the heads of their victims on walls as decorations. They posed for images with the corpses of their prey, smiling with satisfaction. Some humans traveled to other continents just to kill exotic creatures they had never seen before. Keshtar's crystal body went completely dark for several seconds. When light returned, it was barely a flicker. They kill for pleasure. Not even survival, but entertainment. There is more, Thelmoss said, though he could barely bring himself to continue. Archive, display human food preparation, bone marrow. The display showed humans splitting open the bones of their prey to consume the soft tissue inside. They had developed special tools just for extracting the marrow. Some restaurants specialize in serving the bones of multiple species, cracked open for easy access to their contents. They consume even the innermost parts, Thelmoss said. Nothing is sacred to them. Keshtar was examining another section of the database. Friend Thelmoss, look at this section called Cooking Shows. They broadcast their hunting and consumption rituals for entertainment. The holographic display showed cheerful humans demonstrating how to cut apart various creatures. They explained which parts were most tender, how to remove the organs, and the best ways to cook different sections of flesh. The humans in these broadcasts smiled and laughed while handling the corpses of other beings. They educate their young in these methods. Thelmoss observed with growing horror. It is not just survival behavior. It is their culture. Archive, display human food category, competitive eating, Keshtar said. The new images showed humans consuming vast quantities of flesh in time competitions. Hot dog eating contests where they devoured dozens of processed meat tubes in minutes. Wing eating competitions where they stripped the flesh from small bird bones with their teeth, then moved on to the next victim. They compete to see who can consume the most creatures in the shortest time. Keshtar said, his voice becoming increasingly faint. They have turned mass consumption into sport. Thelmoss discovered a new section that made his leaves curl with terror. Archive, display human food category, organ consumption. The hologram showed humans consuming every part of their prey. Hearts, livers, kidneys, brains. They had developed special preparation methods for each organ. Some were considered delicacies. Others were ground up and stuffed into casings made from the animal's intestines. They waste nothing, Thelmoss said. They consume every part of the creatures they kill. Both aliens stood in the horrible glow of the holographic displays, surrounded by images of humanity's dietary habits. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans didn't just eat other creatures. They had built their entire civilization around the consumption of life. They had art, science, competition, education, and entertainment, all focused on different ways to kill and eat other beings. What have we invited into our galaxy? Keshtar asked quietly. Thelmoss had no answer. In all the galaxy's history, no species had ever encountered predators like this. Beings who killed not just for survival, but for pleasure, sport, and cultural expression, who had spent thousands of years developing more elaborate and artistic ways to consume other life forms. We must warn the others, Thelmoss said finally. Who will believe us? Keshtar replied. Who will understand that there exists a species that has turned the consumption of life into the foundation of their civilization? As the two aliens sat in the horror of their discoveries, neither of them noticed that their conversation was being recorded by the station's automatic translation system. Their words and the database images they had viewed were already being transmitted to governments and news networks across the galaxy. The nightmare was just beginning to spread. The emergency session of the Crystalline Collective had been called at the darkest hour of their cycle, when most of the crystal beings would normally be in deep mineral meditation. But the news from Harmony Station was too urgent to wait for normal schedule. High Resonator Velthora stood at the center of the great crystal amphitheater, her body blazing with emergency bright light. Around her, hundreds of Zolani representatives flickered with nervous energy, their bodies creating a symphony of worried chimes. Fellow crystals, Velthora began, her voice carrying clearly through the mineral halls. We have received disturbing intelligence about the species known as humans. The reports from our delegate Keshtar are beyond our worst fears about Deathworld inhabitants. A young crystal named Shindar pulsed with curiosity. High Resonator. Surely the reports are exaggerated. No civilized species could be as dangerous as the preliminary data suggests. Velthora's light dimmed with sadness. I wish that were true, young one. But the evidence is overwhelming. These humans do not simply consume other life forms for survival. They have built their entire culture around the killing and eating of other beings. the amphitheater filled with the sound of hundreds of crystals resonating with fear and disbelief. "Display the evidence," Velthara commanded. Holographic projections filled the air above the gathered Zilani. Images from Earth's databases showed humans preparing and consuming flesh in thousands of different ways. The crystal beings watched in growing horror as the evidence mounted. They have developed over 50,000 different methods for preparing the flesh of other creatures. Velthara continued. They celebrate this consumption with festivals, competitions, and cultural ceremonies. They teach their young to use cutting tools before they can properly communicate. Elder more than ancient and wise spoke from the back of the amphitheater. "In all my cycles, I have never heard of such creatures. They are not merely predators. They are something far worse. They take pleasure in the death of others." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Aquarian homeworld, similar emergency meetings were taking place. The Deep Council had gathered in their most sacred chambers, where the pressure was greatest and the water was purest. Velnara had transmitted her report through quantum communication, and now the entire species was in panic. Prime Current Flawest spoke to the assembled council, his voice creating bubbles that rose through the dark water. "The surface dwellers from the third planet are even worse than our ancient nightmares predicted. They do not simply hunt for survival. They breed other creatures specifically to kill and consume them." The council members' tentacles writhed in distress. Such a concept was beyond their understanding. "They have something called factory farming," Flawest continued, reading from Velnara's report. "They keep millions of creatures in small spaces, feed them until they grow large, then kill them all at once for food. The scale of death they create is incomprehensible." Elder Depth Singer Qualin spoke from the deepest part of the chamber. "And they do this willingly? Not from necessity, but from choice." "The reports indicate they have alternatives," Flawest replied grimly. "Some humans consume only plants, proving that eating flesh is not required for their survival. Yet most choose to kill anyway." This news sent shockwaves through the Aquarian Council. A species that killed when they didn't need to was beyond their comprehension. On the Verdani homeworld, the Great Grove was withering. News of human dietary habits had spread through the connected root network that linked all plant-like beings on the planet. For the first time in their species' history, entire forests were experiencing what they called philosophical drought, the inability to photosynthesize due to existential horror. Grove Speaker W.L. Naw stood before the Council of Leaves, his bark-like skin gray with stress. "Root siblings, we face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. There exists a species that consumes life not for survival, but for taste preference." The assembled plant beings rustled their leaves in distressed harmony. Their databases contain detailed descriptions of consuming creatures while they are still alive. W.L. Noss continued. "They boil certain sea creatures because they believe the terror improves the flavor. They have a practice called aged meat, where they allow flesh to partially decay before consumption, believing this makes it more pleasing to consume." Ancient Root Mother Brentala spoke from her place of honor, her voice like wind through old-growth forest. "In our worst nightmares, we imagine creatures that might consume us for survival. But these beings consume others for pleasure, for sport, for cultural tradition. They are not just predators. They are something we have no word for." The news was spreading faster than anyone had expected. The automatic translation systems on Harmony Station had been recording and transmitting every conversation, every database query, every horrified discovery. News networks across the galaxy were beginning to broadcast the terrible truth about human eating habits. On the silicon-based world of the architects, geometric beings of living rock were reinforcing their city's defenses. The news that humans use tools specifically designed for cutting apart other creatures had convinced them that these deathworlders were capable of destroying even mineral-based life forms. Builder Prime Hexagon issued orders to strengthen all defensive barriers. If they can develop thousands of ways to consume soft flesh, what might they do to beings of stone and metal? We must assume they will find ways to consume us as well. In the gas giant home of the Cloud Dancers, ethereal beings of living atmosphere were discussing whether to flee to other galaxies entirely. The concept of physical consumption was so alien to them that they couldn't even properly understand what humans were doing, but they knew it was wrong on a fundamental level. Sky Singer Whisper spoke to the assembled winds. These creatures take solid matter from other beings into their own bodies. The very concept violates the natural order. If they will violate life itself or taste preference, what other natural laws would they break? The reports were getting worse as more databases were accessed. Humans didn't just eat creatures from their own world. They actively sought out new species to consume. They had driven some creatures to extinction through overhunting. They kept detailed records of which parts of which animals tasted best. Most terrifying of all was the discovery that humans often consume creatures that look similar to various alien species. Fish that resembled aquarians, plants that looked like young Verdani, and even some creatures that shared characteristics with the crystalline Zilani. As the news spread across the galaxy, a pattern emerged. Every species that learned about human dietary habits had the same reaction. Pure existential terror. Not just fear of being eaten themselves, but horror at the realization that such creatures could exist. The humans, still on Harmony Station, had no idea that their simple answers about breakfast had triggered a galaxy-wide panic. They were confused by why the aliens had become distant and fearful, not understanding that they had accidentally revealed themselves to be the most terrifying beings the galaxy had ever encountered. By the end of that cycle, 3 minor species had petitioned the Galactic Council to be relocated to different spiral arms of the galaxy. The request was simple. They wanted to be as far away from the human homeworld as physically possible. Ambassador Jake Martinez woke up in his quarters on Harmony Station to find his door chime ringing urgently. He checked the time display. It was very early in the station's artificial day cycle. Through the small window, he could see alien ships departing from the station's docking bays, more than he had ever seen leaving at one time. "Come in," he called, quickly putting on his uniform. Dr. Lisa Carter and Ben Thompson entered, both looking confused and worried. Lisa was carrying a tablet, showing news feeds from across the galaxy. "Jake, something terrible is happening," Lisa said. "Look at these broadcasts." The tablet screen showed news reports from dozens of different alien worlds. Even though the languages were different, the translation software made their meaning clear. Words like deathworld predators, flesh consumers, and the terror from the third planet appeared again and again. "They're talking about us," Ben said, his face pale. "Every news network in the galaxy is broadcasting warnings about humans." Jake took the tablet and scrolled through more reports. The Zilani Collective had issued a formal warning to all member species about creatures that consume life for pleasure. The Aquarian Deep Council had declared Earth's solar system a no-travel zone. 3 smaller species had requested emergency relocations to other parts of the galaxy. How did this happen? Jake asked. All we did was answer questions about food. Before anyone could answer, there was another chime at the door. This time it was Keshtar, the Zilani diplomat they had met on their first day. His crystal body was barely glowing, and he moved slowly, as if carrying a great weight. "Ambassador Martinez," Keshtar said in a voice like breaking glass, "we must speak." "Of course," Jake said. "Please, come in." Keshtar entered but stayed near the door, as far from the humans as possible. "I have been asked to deliver a formal message from the Galactic Council. Your species has been reclassified." "Reclassified?" Lisa asked. "You are no longer considered a potential member species." Keshtar explained. "You have been designated as apex predator entities and placed under active observation protocols." Jake felt his heart sink. "Because we eat meat?" "Because you have turned the consumption of life into an art form," Keshtar replied, his voice filled with something that might have been accusation. "We have studied your databases. We know about your hunting for sport, your competitive consumption, your celebration of death." Ben tried to defend their species. "But we don't eat intelligent beings. We have rules about what we hunt and how we treat animals." Keshtar's crystal body flickered with what might have been disbelief. "You have rules about killing? Does this make the killing acceptable?" Lisa stepped forward. "Many humans don't eat meat at all. We have vegetarians and vegans who only consume plants. Doesn't that show we can be civilized?" This seemed to make things worse. Keshtar's light dimmed even further. "You mean some of your species are so terrifying that even other humans fear their dietary habits?" No, that's not what I meant, Lisa said quickly, but she could see the misunderstanding was getting worse. Jake tried a different approach. Look, I understand this is shocking to you, but humans have been eating this way for thousands of years. It's natural for us. We're not monsters. Natural, Keshtar repeated. You believe consuming other life forms is natural. For humans, yes, Jake said. We evolved as omnivores. Our bodies are designed to digest both plants and meat. Keshtar was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice so soft it was barely audible. Ambassador, I must ask you something that has been troubling my people. In your databases, we found images of creatures that look similar to us. Fish that resemble aquarians, plants that look like young verdani, crystallized minerals that could be mistaken for Zolani. Jake felt a cold chill run down his spine as he realized where this was going. You have consumed creatures that look like us, Keshtar continued. How do we know you will not try to consume us? We would never hurt intelligent beings, Jake said desperately. Humans have strict moral codes about that. Moral codes, Keshtar said, like the moral code you have about consuming other life forms. Before Jake could answer, his communicator beeped with an urgent message. The screen showed a priority transmission from Earth. Ambassador Martinez, came the voice of Director Sarah Wright from Earth's Diplomatic Corps. We're receiving reports of mass panic across the galaxy. Every human ship and station is being asked to leave alien space immediately. What happened out there? Jake looked at his team, then at the barely glowing crystal being near his door. We told them what we eat for breakfast. There was a long silence from Earth. Then Director Wright's voice came back, filled with disbelief. You triggered a galactic crisis by talking about food? It's more complicated than that, Jake said. They don't understand that eating meat is normal for humans. To them, we're terrifying predators. Sir, Ben added, they think we might try to eat them. Another voice joined the transmission. General Robert Hayes from Earth Defense Command. Ambassador, we're tracking alien fleet movements throughout the sector. Military ships from 12 different species are moving to defensive positions around their home worlds. They're treating us as a threat. Jake rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of the diplomatic disaster. General, we need to be very careful here. Any aggressive movement from our ships will make things worse. They already think we're monsters. Keshtar spoke up from near the door. Ambassador, there's more. The Council has asked me to inquire about your ship's food storage. Our food storage? Lisa asked. Yes. We need to know. Are there creature corpses aboard your vessel? Are you carrying the remains of beings you have killed? Jake realized with growing horror that their ship did indeed carry standard human food supplies. Frozen meat, canned fish, dried jerky made from various animals. We have normal human food supplies, he said carefully. Keshtar's crystal body went almost completely dark. You travel through space carrying the corpses of your prey. It's just food, Ben said, but even he was starting to realize how that sounded. The crystal being back toward the door. The Council has made a decision. All human vessels will be escorted to the edge of charted space. You will be given supplies and fuel, but you must leave. You're banishing us? Jake asked in disbelief. We are protecting ourselves, Keshtar replied, and perhaps protecting you as well. There are some species in the galaxy that believe the only way to deal with apex predators is to eliminate them entirely. As Keshtar left, Jake looked at his team and then at the continuing stream of panic news reports on Lisa's tablet. They had come to the stars hoping to make friends and allies. Instead, they had accidentally revealed that humans were the stuff of nightmares to every peaceful species in the galaxy. The worst part was that they still didn't fully understand why sharing their dietary habits had been so terrifying. To humans, eating meat was as natural as breathing. But to aliens who had never encountered true predators, humans represented something beyond their worst fears. And now, humanity was alone in the galaxy, feared and avoided by every other intelligent species they had encountered. The situation reached its breaking point when the footage was released. It happened 3 days after the human delegation had been escorted to the edge of galactic space. Someone on Earth, trying to help with public relations, had transmitted what they thought were positive images of human culture. The transmission included footage from the annual Kansas City Barbecue Festival, one of Earth's largest food celebrations. Jake Martinez was aboard the human diplomatic vessel, now drifting at the border of charted space, when an emergency broadcast began flooding in from across the galaxy. He watched in growing horror as alien news networks showed the footage to their terrified audiences. The images showed thousands of humans gathered in what looked like a massive outdoor celebration. Smoke rose from hundreds of cooking stations where teams of humans tended to large pieces of meat cooking over open flames. The camera showed close-ups of humans laughing and smiling as they consumed enormous portions of what the aliens now knew were the corpses of other creatures. But it was the commentary that made everything worse. "Finger-licking good," proclaimed one happy human as he bit into what appeared to be the limb of a small creature. "This meat just falls right off the bone," said another, holding up what was clearly a rib covered in flesh. "I've been smoking this brisket for 14 hours, explained a cook wearing an apron that read Grill Master. "Low and slow, that's the secret to tender meat." Dr. Lisa Carter sat next to Jake in the ship's common area, watching the alien news reports with growing despair. "They don't understand that it's just a cultural celebration," she said weakly. Ben Thompson was reading the translated commentary from various alien news sources. "Listen to this," he said. "The Zilani broadcaster is calling it a mass consumption ritual where the predators gather to celebrate death. The Aquarian report describes it as organized feasting on corpses with expressions of joy and satisfaction." The footage got worse. The cameras had captured humans participating in eating contests, seeing who could consume the most ribs in a set time period. They showed children learning to handle barbecue from their parents. They captured the moment when contest winners held up trophies shaped like the creatures they had consumed most efficiently. Jake's communicator beeped with another priority message from Earth. Director Wright's voice was strained with stress. "Ambassador, we have a crisis. The footage has caused 3 more species to petition for emergency relocation. The Verdani Grove speaker has declared that humans represent the end of civilized existence. We're receiving reports that some species are considering extreme measures." "What kind of extreme measures?" Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. General Hayes joined the transmission. "We detected weapons platforms being moved into position around several key worlds. Some species are discussing the possibility of a preemptive strike against Earth." "They want to attack us?" Ben asked in disbelief. "They're terrified," the general replied. "From their perspective, we've revealed ourselves to be ultimate predators who celebrate killing and consumption. They think we might spread throughout the galaxy, hunting and eating everything we encounter." The situation deteriorated further when more footage surfaced. This time it was from a cooking show called Extreme Cuisine, where human chefs prepared exotic dishes from around the world. The alien audiences watched in absolute horror as cheerful humans demonstrated how to prepare dishes that involved creatures being consumed while still alive. "Today we're making drunken shrimp," the chef explained happily, "where the shrimp are marinated in alcohol before being eaten raw. The alcohol stuns them but keeps them fresh and moving." The Aquarian news anchor covering the story had to stop broadcasting after seeing this. Several Aquarian cities reported mass psychological trauma among their populations, but it was the discovery of competitive eating records that pushed several species over the edge. The aliens learned that humans had documented contests where individuals consumed hundreds of creatures in single sittings. Hot dog eating contests where humans devoured what appeared to be dozens of processed creature tubes in minutes. Wing eating competitions where humans stripped flesh from bones with their teeth at incredible speed. Keshtar contacted Jake's ship with an emergency transmission. The Zilani diplomat's crystal body was now so dim it was barely visible. "Ambassador Martinez," Keshtar said, his voice like the whisper of wind through broken crystal, "I have been asked to deliver a final message from the Galactic Council." "We're listening," Jake said grimly. "The Council has voted. Humanity has been declared a Class X extinction risk. Your species is to be contained within your home system indefinitely." "Contained?" Lisa asked, Automated defense platforms are being positioned around your solar system. Any human vessel attempting to leave will be destroyed immediately. Jake felt the weight of complete diplomatic failure crushing down on him. Keshtar, you have to understand, we're not monsters. We don't want to hurt anyone. Ambassador, Keshtar replied sadly, we have seen your feeding rituals. We know you find joy in consuming other life forms. We know you compete to see who can consume the most creatures the fastest. We know you teach your young to participate in these rituals. It's just food, Ben said desperately. You say just food, Keshtar responded, but we have seen your faces when you consume flesh. You smile, you laugh, you celebrate. For you, the death of others brings pleasure. The transmission continued with more devastating news. The phrase humans use, finger-licking good, has become a terror phrase across the galaxy. Parents use it to frighten their young into behaving. Be good, or the finger-licking creatures will come for you. Jake closed his eyes, realizing that humanity's most innocent cultural expressions had become galactic nightmare fuel. And the phrase about meat falling off the bone, Keshtar continued, has been interpreted by many species as evidence that humans prefer their prey be so thoroughly destroyed that it cannot maintain structural integrity. Dr. Carter tried one last desperate explanation. But many humans are vegetarians. We don't all eat meat. Keshtar's light flickered weakly. Yes, we learned about your vegetarians. This made everything worse. How could that make it worse? Lisa asked, because if some humans refuse to consume flesh, it means the choice to kill and eat others is not necessary for survival. It means a majority of your species chooses to kill for pleasure alone. The transmission ended with Keshtar delivering the final verdict. The Council has concluded that humans are not just predators, but willing predators. You kill and consume others by choice, not necessity. You have turned death into entertainment and competition. You are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever encountered. As the communication link closed, Jake looked at a small team aboard their ship at the edge of space. They had come to the stars with hopes of joining a galactic community. Instead, they had accidentally revealed that humanity was so terrifying to other species that they would rather risk war than allow humans to roam free in the galaxy. And the worst part was that they had done it all by simply being honest about what they ate for breakfast. The turning point came from the most unexpected source. Jake Martinez was reviewing reports of the automated defense platforms being positioned around Earth's solar system when his ship's communications officer announced an incoming transmission. The message was coming from a Vorthak battlecruiser, a species that humans had heard mentioned only in whisper warnings from other aliens. The Vorthak were warriors, one of the few species in the galaxy that other civilizations actually feared. They were large, reptilian beings with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws. Unlike the peaceful species that dominated the Galactic Council, the Vorthak had built their society around concepts of honor, combat, and strength. This is War Chief Gorth of the Vorthak battle fleet, came the deep, rumbling voice through the communication system. Human vessel, we request permission to approach. Jake looked at Dr. Lisa Carter and Ben Thompson, both of whom appeared as confused as he felt. Of all the species to contact them, the Vorthak were the last they would have expected. This is Ambassador Jake Martinez, he replied. Permission granted, War Chief. The Vorthak battle cruiser was an impressive sight as it approached. Unlike the elegant, curved designs of other alien ships, this vessel looked like it had been built for war, angular and armored, with weapon systems clearly visible along its hull. When War Chief Gorth came aboard the human ship, Jake was surprised by what he saw. The Vorthak leader was indeed large and intimidating, standing nearly 8 feet tall with dark green scales and intelligent yellow eyes. But he moved with dignity and purpose, not the savage aggression Jake had expected. Ambassador Martinez, Gorth said in English that was heavily accented but clear, we have been observing the situation between your species and the Galactic Council. And, Jake asked cautiously, we believe the Council is making a serious mistake, Gorth replied. They fear you because they do not understand what you are. Ben stepped forward. What do you mean? Gorth's reptilian features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile, revealing impressive teeth. The council species are prey animals, ambassador. They have been prey animals for so long that they have forgotten what predators truly are. Lisa looked confused. I don't understand. Are you saying we're predators? Of course you are predators, Gore said matter-of-factly. Any fool can see that. Your eyes face forward for tracking prey. Your teeth are designed for cutting flesh. Your bodies are built for persistence hunting. You are apex predators of your world. Jake felt a sinking feeling. So, you agree that we're dangerous? Gorth made a sound that might have been laughter. Dangerous? Yes, you are dangerous. But you are not savage. The war chief began pacing the small room, his claws clicking on the metal floor. The council fears you because they have never encountered civilized predators. They believe that hunting and consuming other creatures makes a species evil. They are wrong. How are they wrong? Ben asked. Because, Gorth explained, you could have hunted them, but you chose not to. You could have seen them as prey, but instead you sought friendship. You are predators with honor. Jake felt a spark of hope. You understand that we're not monsters? Monsters. Gortha's yellow eyes gleamed. Ambassador! Do you know what monsters are? Monsters are creatures that kill the young of other species. Monsters consume the intelligent and civilized. Monsters show no mercy to the defeated. The war chief stopped pacing and looked directly at Jake. We have studied your species extensively since this crisis began. Do you know what we found? Tell us, Jake said quietly. We found that humans keep creatures as companions that they could easily kill and eat. You call them pets, and you protect them, care for them, even mourn them when they die. We found that humans have rules about what they hunt and when they hunt it. We found that humans show mercy to defeated enemies and help the wounded. Gortha's voice grew stronger. Most importantly, we found that when humans encountered species like the Aquarians, who resemble the fish you consume, you did not see prey. You saw people. Lisa blinked in surprise. You've been studying us? For cycles, Gorth confirmed. The Vorthak do not trust easily, but we recognize honor when we see it. You are predators. Yes, but you are predators with conscience, with mercy, with wisdom. The war chief activated a communication device on his armor. Fleet Command, this is War Chief Gorth. Begin implementation of Operation Shield Wall. What's Operation Shield Wall? Jake asked. The Vorthak battle fleet is moving to defensive positions around Earth, Gorth explained. We will not allow the Council to attack your world. Ben stared at the reptilian warrior in amazement. You're protecting us? We are protecting the galaxy's greatest predators from extinction, Gorth replied. And in doing so, we may be saving the galaxy itself. Saving the galaxy? Lisa asked. Gorth nodded gravely. The council species have grown soft and weak because they have never faced true danger. They have forgotten that the universe is not a safe place. But there are threats out there, species that truly are monsters, beings that consume intelligence for pleasure, entities that destroy worlds for sport. The war chief's eyes grew distant. Beyond the rim of charted space, there are things that make your worst predators look like gentle creatures. And when those threats come, and they will come, the galaxy will need its apex predators. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You're talking about something specific. The Devourers, Gorth said simply. They have been moving slowly toward this galaxy for generations. They consume not just flesh, but consciousness itself. They turn entire species into mindless husks that serve their hunger. And you think humans can stop them? Jake asked. Gortha's smile returned, more terrifying and encouraging than before. Ambassador, your species developed thousands of ways to kill creatures that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than you. You turned hunting into an art form. You created weapons that can destroy cities and strategies that can topple empires. The war chief leaned forward. But most importantly, you learned to work together. Humans hunt in packs, coordinate attacks, and never abandon their wounded. When the Devourers come, the galaxy will need hunters who can think, plan, and fight as one. Over the following days, the situation began to change in ways no one had expected. The Vorthak Fleet's protection of Earth created a new dynamic in galactic politics. Other warrior species, impressed by the Vortex stance, began to reconsider their position on humans. More importantly, Gortha's broadcast to the galaxy began to shift the narrative. Instead of presenting humans as monsters, he described them as the galaxy's potential guardians, predators who had chosen to use their abilities to protect rather than consume. A species that can hunt anything but chooses not to hunt us, Gort declared in one widely broadcast speech, is worthy of respect, not fear. Slowly, some of the more progressive council members began to listen. The Architect Collective, being silicon-based and nearly indestructible, were the first to suggest that perhaps humanity's predatory nature could be an asset rather than a threat. The breakthrough came when long-range sensors detected the first Devourer scouts at the galaxy's edge. Suddenly, having apex predators as allies didn't seem like such a terrifying prospect. Jake found himself back on Harmony Station 6 months later, this time as humanity's first galactic defense coordinator. The dining hall where he had first revealed human eating habits was now a strategic planning center where humans worked alongside alien species to prepare for the coming threat. Keshtar approached Jake's table, his crystal body now glowing with steady, if nervous, light. "Ambassador Martinez, I owe you an apology." "No apology necessary," Jake replied. "We understand why our dietary habits were frightening. We called you monsters," Keshtar said, "but now we understand what you truly are." "What's that?" Jake asked. The crystal being's light pulsed with what might have been respect. "You are the galaxy's hunters. And for the first time in our history, we are grateful that the monsters we feared are on our side." As Jake looked around the room of humans and aliens working together to defend the galaxy, he realized that humanity's reputation as terrifying predators had become their greatest diplomatic asset. The phrase, "Don't make us ask what you taste like," had indeed become the most effective threat in galactic diplomacy. But more than that, humanity had found their place in the galaxy not as the monsters others feared them to be, but as the guardians others needed them to be, even if they still couldn't share a meal without making their allies nervous.